It is indeed a beautiful morning, all soaked in the delightful frame of mind. This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Dr. Arun Kumar Verma, sir. I welcome you all for the second day of our FDP program of NIT Puducherry. Dr. Verma, presently working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at MNIT Jaipur. Dr. Verma earned his PhD and a Master's from IIT Delhi, New Delhi, India. He was postdoctoral research fellow at Energy Research Institute at NTU, Singapore during July 2015 to July 2016. Prior to joining NTU Singapore, he worked as a visiting graduate researcher at Smart Grid Energy Research Center, University of California, Los Angeles, during the period from September 2014 to April 2015. He has developed an experimental set photovoltaic power generation system with power quality improvement. He has also developed various EV charger topologies. His research interest includes smart grid, microgrids, electric vehicle integration into the grid, bidirectional power flow, grid interfaced and standalone solar photovoltaic system. The research work accomplished by him is supported with more than 72 research papers, including IEEE IET journals. He won the prestigious BASc Fellowship for Advanced Solar Energy Research at Smart Grid Energy Research Center, University of California, Los Angeles in the year of 2014. He has been conferred with prestigious Power System Research Award in the year of 2016. This award has been instituted by TOSOCO as an initiative to recognize and reward the innovative technical research excellence in the field of power system. He has been invited by Defense University College Ethiopia and Metal Engineering Corporation Ethiopia as an instructor for MTech program in renewable energy engineering during the period of 7th May to 27th May of 2016. To name as few, at present, he is holding DST research funding of 4.5 crore, including Mission Innovation, SPARC, ECR, etc. Dr. Verma is an assistant editor of Smart Grid Journal and also the member of editorial board of EPE Journal. He was guest editor of special issue of IET Power Electronics. He is member of IEEE and served as a reviewer of several IEEE transactions and international journal. Today, we are privileged to have an opportunity to listen to him. On behalf of all gathered here, I welcome you, sir. Please take over the session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. So, my presentation is all about basically electric vehicles. What are the importance, challenges, and what are the recent advancement or technologies? Since I have a few funding projects working on electric vehicles, working on electric vehicle chargers, so in the end of my presentation, I'll talk about what exactly we have developed. We have a patent few chargers, and we have developed in a real time. We are using in our lab also. Okay, so I'll discuss everything about it. My request is just note down your queries. In the end, I'll be available for your queries. Okay, so meantime, you can note down whatever your queries are. Just note down and let me know at the end. Okay. So basically, electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are very old. Since right now we are showing so many things, we are seeing so many things in India, like e-mobility mission. Government has a lot of startups, a lot of schemes to promote electric vehicles, but it is not suddenly started. Okay, India came to know more and more about electric vehicles, and people came to know more and more about electric vehicles in the after 2010. That we have some schemes, government have some schemes to promote electric vehicles, but these electric vehicles are not new. Okay, even in 1830, you can imagine battery electric vehicles invented by Thomas Davenport. He's a famous person. He has some books also. Robert Anderson. They use non-rechargeable batteries. Okay, Davenport car hold all vehicles land speed record until 1900. Means till 1900, whatever the maximum speed of electric vehicles, that was by Davenport's car only. Okay. Similarly, 1819, some development came out, 1904, 1910, just like that. So you all are familiar about all these things. This is a recent one, or you can say the old one. Okay. These are the few things in the past. Now, if you go through the timeline, as I told you earlier, that 1813 we started. So then this is a timeline, 1828, 1832, 1889, 9. Since battery was there, so people can think of how to start, how to run electric vehicle through battery. So, but the things are now in a better form. Means we have advancement in the power electronics, we have advancement in the motor side, we have advancement on charging topologies, and so many other equipment. Okay, so now the scenario of electrical vehicle is totally changed in terms of efficiency and so many things. Side by side, we have a lot of issues also. So you can see these are the few timeline. What exactly happened in 1920 and 1935? Decline in electric vehicles. Why this happened? Because during this time, during 1920 or 1935, if you compare the gasoline, or if you compare the crude oil price and the electricity price, those are very comparable. Means your crude oil price was quite less. So people thought that running a vehicle on electrical energy is a quite costly. So that's why there is a decline in the 1920 or 1935. But later on, you can see the scenario is quite changed, and we don't know how long this fossil fuel or this crude oil will be available. So people are thinking for a alternative source of transportation, you can say. Okay. So in 2006, you can say that, now I'm coming to the latest one. Silicon Valley startup takes on electric cars. Tesla Motors, a Silicon Valley startup. Silicon Valley or Bangalore, basically. So they announced that in 2006, basically they announced that it will produce a luxury electric sports car with a range of 200 plus miles. Okay. Similarly, developments came to now in 2010. First commercially available plug-in hybrid vehicle for sale. GM, General Motors, they released it. Similarly, Nissan launched in 2010. Then a few more companies came into the picture, and they developed some efficient cars. Okay. So basically, in 1830 also electric vehicle was available. There is a decline in between 1920 1935. Then again, with the advancement of the technologies in power electronics, electric motors, and so many things, again they gain ground. And similarly, the important thing while gaining the ground of this electric vehicle, that the crude oil depletion, depletion of this crude oil, also the price of the crude oil, that is also important reason. Okay, if you see, Gulf countries never want that any research should comes out from solar or from the electric vehicles, because they don't want to spoil their market. Okay, because their bread and butter is only this crude oil. Okay, so they never discourage, they never encourage any research in this field. But now, since people know that what is the future of crude oil, okay, so that's why alternate source of energy people are searching for. That's why government of India came out with some certain plan. Not only government of India, a lot of countries are playing a role in this area. Now, why we need electric vehicles? So one reason is basically your air quality index, or you can simply say air pollution. Okay, the air quality index between 0 to 50 is considered as a good. Then 50 to 100 satisfactory. Then 100 to 200 moderate. 200 300 poor. 300 to 400 very poor. Then 400 to 500 severe quality. Okay, so you might have heard in generally in November or December in Delhi itself, the AQI index is around 800, 900, or even 1000 also. So you can see, you can understand the severity of the air quality, and this is quite dangerous for small children and elder people. And if I remember, I was in NTU Singapore, and they have basically in Singapore, once the air quality index was more than 100. Okay, So there's a national advisory, children should not come out, people should not go for jogging or exercise outside, close their window, or even N95 mask was given free of cost in the university. So my emphasis is basically a kind of sensitivity towards life, towards health. Okay, so I mean, you can see that what kind of the air quality index our cities have, and these are the basically very effective for people with older age, or you can say the children. Okay. Now, for who is responsible for this air quality index? So 14% transportation. Transportation, I mean, responsible for this air quality index. Although this air quality index is also, I mean, depend upon the industries and all, but 14% is come from the transportation, 21 from the industries. So now greenhouse gas, I mean, through those transportation, which basically depend upon fuel, or you can say the crude oil or petrol, diesel, whatever you can say. Okay. Now greenhouse gases emission, you can see China is the leading the chart, 26% greenhouse gas emissions from China, USA around 14%, then India 6.4%, Russia 4.9%. So we are the great contributor of this greenhouse gas emissions, and you know what are the disadvantage of this greenhouse gas emission, and that is basically coming from industry or your transportation, that the transportation which depend upon your petrol, diesel or gasoline. Now one important thing is, okay, there is a one thing, low carbon grid, medium low carbon, medium high carbon and high carbon. Listen this carefully. What is low carbon grid? Low carbon grid means 97% of the energy which is injected into the grid, that is coming from the renewable energy, wind, solar, hydro, like that. Okay, so that we will say low carbon grid, because in order to generate that energy, the carbon emission is quite less, since we are using a renewable energy. That is called basically low carbon grid. And one is high carbon grid, means 93% of the energy injected into the grid, that is coming from the coal-fired power plant. You can say TPS, thermal power plant, or by burning through coal. So those grids are high carbon grid. Only 7% of the energy into these grids are coming from the zero emission fuels, or you can say renewable energy. So you must understand low carbon grid and high carbon grid. And then medium low carbon is 50-50. 50% zero emission fuel, 50% natural gas. Medium carbon, 24% from renewable energy, 76% from the natural gas, you can say. Okay. Medium high carbon, 12% zero emission fuel and 61% natural gas, 27% coal. So those are the medium high carbon. Now what I would like to say out of this slide, basically, if you charge your electric vehicle from the low carbon grid, what will happen? And if you charge your electric vehicles from the high carbon grid, what will happen? Because we are talking about the greenhouse gas emission. Okay, so how it affect means, ultimately I would like to say that using the electrical vehicle is not only the solution. Okay, using the electric vehicles is not only the solution. Now what is the solution? Basically, see these slides. I'm charging my electric vehicle from the high carbon grid. Okay, in this slide, I'm charging my electric vehicles or hybrid electric vehicles from the high carbon grid. Okay, so now the comparison is there. You can see the combustion engine based, or you can say the conventional vehicle. Okay, the emission level is greenhouse gas emission, you can say, that is basically 30. Okay, and if electrical vehicle I am charging from the high carbon grid, you can see the emission level 11.7, 11.9, okay, 12.2, 11.8, like that. Means not a big difference from 13 to 11.7 or 9.3 or 9.4. You understand this? Okay. Now same electric vehicle, if I charge from the low carbon grid, means the grid which is contributes from 97% of the renewable energy. Okay, so in that case you compare the emission level 4, 3.9, 3.8, 4.6 and 13. So 4 and 13 really make a difference. Okay, So here, the thing is, if you charge your electrical vehicle from a low carbon grid or from renewable energy, the greenhouse gas emission is quite less. Okay. And if you charge your electric vehicle from a high carbon grid, it won't make much difference. Okay. So the combination is what? Electric vehicle and renewable energy. That is the best combination in order to protect your environment, in order to protect your greenhouse gas emission. Okay, so many things. Now, how it contributes basically? Okay, you see, basically a lot of interest is there. Even I'm using one electric vehicle in my campus. We have developed, later on I'll discuss in the end, that our students have developed one electric vehicles. Okay, I'm using that in my campus. So that is nothing but reduced fuel stress, greenhouse gas emission. Okay, so I can say that hardly I refuel my car. Whenever I have to go out from my campus, then I use my car. Otherwise, I'm using my cycle. That is basically electric cycle. Okay, right now outside of my office, it is into the charging mode. So now see this. Why electric vehicles? Okay, whatever I have discussed till now, that is only one point. That greenhouse gas emission, air quality index, that is the one thing. That is basically how we are adopting those electric vehicles, or we say what is the reason behind promotion of the electric vehicles. The one reason already I have explained. Another reason is basically, you can see this graph, oil production and demand basically. Okay, starting from 1930. Okay, in 1930, even in a history also, in the beginning of my slide, I talk about that during 1930 or 1940, there is a decline in the electric vehicles. Why? Because you can see the demand and supply. Okay, lot of crude oil was available and at a cheaper cost. So people forget about the electric vehicles. Okay, 50, 70. Now you see the 1970 to 2010. Your world oil production is reducing and the demand is increasing. And if you see from the 2010 to 2030 and 2050, there's a prediction basically that the production will come down and the demand will increase. Okay. Now, how to fill this gap? This is a huge gap. So alternate sources or alternate mean of transportation we have to involve, or we have to invent. That is the solution for this. Okay. So this graph is also responsible why a lot of people are thinking about electric vehicles. Okay. Then you see global fossil carbon emission from the top to bottom. Okay. So this is basically the CO2 emissions. How basically CO2 emission from oil, CO2 emission from coal, CO2 emission from cement production and other. So CO2 emission from oil, this is the highest. So we have to protect the environment also. When greenhouse gas emission increases, ozone depletion in the ozone layer is there. Then with this depletion, the temperature, let's say if 1 degree temperature of Earth is increased, then the ice in a glacier will melt and the sea level will increase, and maybe it may submerge the area nearby sea. The area nearby sea may submerge. Okay, so these kind of concern already environmentalists have raised. So this is basically the global air temperature since 1850. So you can see there's a rise in the temperature. Global, you can see 0.6 or something. Okay, so global temperature of Earth is also rising due to this greenhouse gas emissions and all. So now various emissions from the ignition engine, basically carbon dioxide, volatile organic compound, nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, all these are harmful to the environment. So ultimately, I'm saying that one concern is our air quality, health concern is involved in that. Another concern is our environment. Already, if I talk about environment concern, it will take a long time. So I'll cut it short. Ultimately, our concern is increase in the globally average temperature since the mid 20th century is very likely due to the observed increase in the anthropogenic greenhouse gas concentration. So because of this greenhouse gases, average temperature is rising. Temperature rising means ice on the glacier will melt, it will increase the sea level, and there would be maybe submerged area nearby the sea. So lot of environmentalists have talk about keep the global temperature rise this century below 2 degrees Celsius. So efforts to limit the temperature increase even further 1.5 degrees Celsius. So strengthen the ability to continue to deal with the impact of climate change. So many things are there. So basically from here, there is evolution of the electric vehicle. That's why more and more people are thinking for electric vehicle right now. So now, what are the advantages? No fuel, no emission. Ultimately, these are ideal thing. No fuel, no emission is the ideal one. Okay, but ultimately, some emission is related to the electric vehicle also. That when you are making this battery, making this solar panels, and so many things. So anyhow, somewhere some emission is involved. But I told you that there is quite a difference when you charge your electric vehicle from a renewable energy and when you charge your electric vehicle from a high carbon. So no petrol, no diesel is needed in a fully electric vehicle, which is a great for carbon footprints. With the renewable energy for charging, carbon footprints sink dramatically. Cheaper to run. Obviously, this is cheap because when I charge my cycle, it took around half of the unit and runs for a 35 kilometer. So I generally recharge it again after 1 week or 10 days. Okay, and I'm moving all over the campus with this cycle, electric cycle. Use of renewable energy for charging can null the charging cost. You know that when solar started, the per unit cost was around 27 rupees or 25 rupees, like that. Right now, the cost of the per unit energy energy generated from the solar is, I think, less than 2 rupees. The new cost, the latest cost, is less than 2 rupees also. So, wide range of speed, health benefits are also there. Already I have described those health benefits. Cheaper to maintain and silent. Okay, very silent. Even nobody know that cycle is passed through or electric scooter is passed through you. Now, one more advantage. That advantage I'll discuss in detail in technical section. Connection of electric vehicle to grid power grid allow following opportunities. Ancillary services, reactive power support. That I'll discuss separately in my experimental things. Okay. Now, classification of electric vehicles: internal combustion engine, micro hybrid electric vehicles, HEV, mild hybrid electric vehicles, and fully hybrid electric vehicle. Those are extended range, parallel, series, complex, and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. BEV, battery electric vehicles, and fuel cell electric vehicles. Now, that already I have mentioned somewhere. Basically, this is a comparison of electric vehicle and internal combustion engine based vehicle. That you see, but the emission, you can say the carbon monoxide, okay, hydrocarbons, nitro oxide, sulfur oxide, particulate matters, and that is from the ICEV, basically internal combustion engine based vehicle and electric vehicles. So you can see the kind of comparison, okay, very effective. Now, comparison of energy diversification between various EV. This is quite interesting. So, I mean, later on you will be cleared what exactly I'm talking about. This you see this slide. When you have a ICEV, internal combustion engine based vehicles, 100% you are sending from petrol, then up to engine this is 20%, driver line 70%. So ultimately, when it reaches to the wheels, only 16% energy transfer. Okay, and you come to the battery electric vehicle. Your electricity is 100%. Okay, now your petrol is converted with electricity. Once it comes to battery, you are using a converter in between. So 98-99% efficiency of the converter. Then ultimately at battery you have a 98% of the total energy. Motor drives, it comes to the 78%. Then wheels 72%. So you can see the efficiency comparison when you are using an electric vehicle and when you are using a internal combustion engine based vehicle. Okay, only 16% and there is 72%. Next one, you see this again. I mean, how crude oil comes in a raw form, goes to the refinery, Then if you use this crude oil for power generation, then power transmission, battery charging, 18%. And crude oil, refinery, then your refilling station, your filling station, petrol pump, diesel pumps. Then up to ICV, only 13%. So this is a comparison of well to wheel. Well to wheel means well is crude oil well. Okay. And wheel means either your electric vehicle wheel or your internal combustion engine vehicle wheels. Okay. So this is the comparison, how well to wheel analysis. Now, what are the challenges basically? Till now, I have talked about when our electric vehicle started, then what are the, why we need electric vehicles, what are the advantage, all those things I have discussed. Okay. Till now, we have a very glossy pictures that electric vehicles are very cheap, silent, environmental friendly, so many things. Okay. But what are the challenges? If electric vehicles are so good, so healthy, or you can say the health benefits, cheaper, and so many things, then why till now? I think till now we all should have those electric vehicles. Why we have not adopted till now? What are the challenges behind that? Okay. What are the challenges we are facing? That's why we don't have electric vehicle with us right now. Only because I told you that my electric cycle battery charges in half unit only. So half unit is cost around 3 rupees or 4 rupees. Okay. In 4 rupees, I am going 35 kilometers. So cheap. But why all are not having those electric vehicles? I think by the time my whole campus should have electric vehicles, not cycles. They may have a car, they may have a scooters like that. So who is stopping them? What are the challenges in that? So when we are talking about the challenges, in this one slide I have taken all the challenges. I have kept all the challenges in this one slide. Those challenges are technical challenges, infrastructure challenges, policy, and market. Okay. First of all, come to the technical challenges. When we talk about the technical challenges, the first thing is battery efficiency. I'll repeat, battery is the main culprit in an electric vehicle. Okay. Why? First thing, efficiency of the battery. Driving range of the vehicle, charging time, safety and environmental impact. Efficiency of the batteries. Basically, my batteries are not so efficient. I think a lot of people who are available right now, who are listening to this presentation, they have used e-rickshaws, electric rickshaws. So generally for e-rickshaws, the rating of the battery is around 48 volt, 100 ampere hour. Okay. And 1 kilowatt hour roughly gives you around the 6.6 or 7 miles. Okay. 1 kilowatt hour roughly gives 7 miles. So this e-rickshaw puller charges his her vehicle in the night time, and in a whole day he moves around 80 kilometers or something, and again back to home, plug in into the charging mode, and then again sleep and woke up in the morning, again started his daily ride. Batteries are not efficient. Okay. Driving range, I'll club both efficiency and driving range. Let's say I'm in Jaipur right now, okay, and Jaipur to Delhi around 300 kilometers. So I'm using my cycle in a campus, 35 kilometers. It gives in a single charge. So my office and my house is around 1 kilometer. They have a distance. So in a whole day I can move around. I can go in campus, no issue, because 35 kilometers is more than enough. 35 kilometers is more than enough. But when I have to travel from Jaipur to Delhi, 300 kilometers, do I have a battery which can give me 300 kilometers in a single charge? This is one question. So efficiency of the batteries. Driving range, okay, means we don't have a battery, although the research is going on. A lot of people are working in this side, how to increase the driving range, how to increase the efficiency of the battery. Okay, but right now there's a hindrance that I don't have a vehicle, or I don't have a battery which can go up to a large range. Okay, I can go to Delhi and come back. I need a type of battery. So driving range is one issue. Charging time. I told you the example of e-rickshaw puller. He has to charge it whole night, around 8 hours or more than that even. Okay. So let's say I'm going to Delhi, and in between there is a drained out, my battery drained out. I don't have a time to charge it for a 3 hour, 4 hour like that. Even I don't have a time of half an hour. Generally, when I go for a refilling station, it took hardly 2 minutes to 5 minutes in order to get your tank full, or maybe maximum 5-7 minutes, not more than that. But I don't have a patience that I should wait for a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour. No, not at all. Okay. So charging time is also a problem. Safety. When you are charging this battery without any coordinated control or smart charging, lithium-ion battery always act as a kind of bomb. Okay. So you have to charge it carefully. So these are the technical side. First thing is we don't have a efficient battery which can go for a miles. Okay. That means driving range is not so good. Although people are working, but right now it will take time to mature this technology. Okay. Now, second thing is infrastructure, charging infrastructure. When you buy a vehicle, maybe this Tata Motors, Mahindra, or whatever, okay, Maruti, whatever you purchase, you know, I have a refilling station. Okay, if I travel from Jaipur to Delhi, I will find around 100 both sides refilling stations. Okay. If not 100, at least 50 will be there, both sides. But do I have a charging station at all the places? If I purchase an electric vehicle, do I have a charging point? This is basically infrastructure. Second thing is battery swapping stations. What exactly the battery swapping stations are? I have a cycle. I have 2 batteries. One battery is always in the operation. Okay, and one battery is fully charged, kept in idle mode. Okay, one battery, once a battery discharge, I'll ask another battery to get into the operation, and drained out battery I'll keep aside. Okay, now I can go to any swapping station during my journey and ask them keep this drained out battery and give me a battery which is fully charged. So I'll keep this battery in an idle mode again. Okay, so this is a backup. That one is in operation, another in idle mode. So whenever it required, I can use the idle mode battery into the operation. Okay, those are basically battery swapping stations. So do we have those swapping stations? Now another thing is smart grid. In a smart grid, basically, even in one of the slide, there was a discussion on the smart grid. Basically, what exactly the smart grid is? I have a, let's say, the population of Jaipur is around 55 lakh, okay, or 60 lakh. Let's say if 10% of the people are having those electric vehicles, so total number of electric vehicles will be 6 lakh, okay, or let's say 5%, so 3 lakh people. Let's say 3 lakh people having electric vehicles. Now, do my grids are capable of handling such kind of load? Because once I connected all those vehicles or not, all those vehicles into charging mode, those are acting as a load. Okay, so I mean whether my existing grids are capable of handling a kind of intermittent load, because these loads are also not certain. Just like solar and wind are in an intermittent nature. Okay, so whether my grids are capable of handling a kind of load, electric vehicle or solar or wind, this type of load. Okay, so this is one thing. Means my grids should be capable of handling a kind of this kind of load. Another thing is battery recycling. When lakhs vehicles are there, obviously battery, because battery has a number of fixed number of cycles, certain number of cycles, 3,000 cycles, 5,000 cycles, or like that. Okay, so once my battery got drained out, I need to replace this battery. So once battery is replaced, do I have a proper recycling plant to manage that waste, battery waste or whatever you can say? Can we recycle it again, make a new battery? That kind of plant should be there. Okay. Now dedicated lanes for electric vehicles, just like a bus rapid corridor road in Delhi or other city like Surat and all. Do we have a separate roads or separate pathways for electric vehicles? So these are the hindrances for the electric. These are the hindrances for the electric vehicles for infrastructure point of view. So technical I have discussed, infrastructure point of view I have discussed. The next one is policy. Basically, this is a government part, government and bureaucrats. So whenever, since the cost, I mean, those electric cars are costly. So do we have policies to maybe the loan facility, maybe the rebate, okay, or maybe the one can say that when I'm passing through this toll tax, since I have an electric vehicle, authorities should not get charged. I mean, I should not get charged. Authorities should not charge me for toll tax. I mean, maybe kind of an incentive, I can say. Okay. So, I mean, this is a policy, basically, how to increase the confidence of the people in the EV market, or how to promote this EV market, or how to win the confidence of the people. We should give subsidies. We should change something in taxation policy. Maybe the electricity tariff plan may be changed in order to have more and more electric vehicles. Or one more thing which I have already told, that if I have an electric vehicle and I'm passing through the toll tax, I should not get charged. Okay. So those kind of policies, some taxation policies should come out should be rolled out in order to increase the confidence of the user. Okay. Even in California, a lot of policies were available. A lot of tax rebate was there. Okay. Like when you purchase a house, there's a tax rebate, or means there's a benefit in your income tax. Okay. So similarly, something should be there for electric vehicle also. And why it should be there? Already I have explained why the electric vehicles are important. Okay. Now another part is market. Market part, testing and certification, vehicle servicing, high capital cost and financing, electricity quality, market for electricity storage, consumer perception, raw material for batteries. Testing and certification. For a vehicle less than 25 km per hour, just like my cycle which I am using in campus. For a vehicle having a electric vehicle, okay, especially for electric vehicles having a speed less than 25 km per hour, there is no certification, nothing is required. No certificate from RTO. Even you can't, you are free to wear the helmet. Whether you want to wear it or not, no issue. You can cross the red light also. Okay. But once your speed is more than 25 km, your scooters basically, cycle is fixed at a 25 km per hour. Okay. Not more than that. But for scooters or for cars, your speed is high. So you need a testing and certification. Right now, ARI Pune is doing that. But do we have a lot of centers in order to testify all those things? One thing. Servicing. When you purchase any vehicle of any company, reputed company, you know they have all the way service stations. Okay. You don't need to worry about when something happened to your electric vehicle. Or maybe, sorry, you need not to worry when something happened to your car. You can go to the service station all the time, anytime you can go. Okay. But that is not the case in case of electrical vehicle. Once you are purchasing the electric vehicle, first thing is the reliability. Means if something went wrong, where you will go. Okay. So vehicle servicing means the production of the electric vehicle should be there, but side by side we must have a service station also, or you can say the customer satisfaction should be there. That if something happened to the vehicle, they can go to the nearby service station and get it corrected. Now, high capital cost and financing. Obviously, I told you that the cost of the electric vehicle is quite high. Raw material for the batteries, basically lead acid battery, lithium ion, lithium air, lithium sulfur, and those type of batteries are available. So you can see the lithium is the biggest player in the battery. Okay. And for lead acid battery, you need a lead. So do we have the raw materials for batteries? This I will take care in my earlier slide. So as a whole, these are the hindrances basically, that why all the people are not having electric vehicle, and why they have why the general public doesn't have a confidence to purchase electric vehicles. Okay. Technical infrastructure policy and markets. All the barriers are here. Now next, all these barriers I have already discussed. Now, what exactly Indian perspective is regarding this electric vehicles? We have a National Electric Mobility Mission 2020. So in this, government is having around 4 to 4.5 billion investment, which includes R&D and electric vehicle infrastructure by the private sectors. So government is giving a lot of funded project to the academia, to the industry to develop the technologies. Okay. Even in 2018, I was in IIT Guwahati in a meeting with Ashok Leyland, CTO, Mahindra, and then this Hero Electric. All these people were there. Then I asked one question that since I have a few projects, so I'm working in this charger side. So can I get a real-time feedback from industry? What are the problems which you are facing in electric vehicles, so that we will try to give some solution for that. Then they bluntly told, they simply told that we are just purchasing it from the China and assembling here. That's all. Okay, so this is basically government want to discourage this. That why not the Indian startups or maybe the Indian industries to come out, and that's why they are spending, or that's why they are investing money, okay, in R&D and all. And means purchasing from China, I understand, not a crime, but anyway, the growth of Indian, or the growth of the Indian company should be there. That's why government is promoting Startup India, Digital India, and so many things, Make in India, lot of things are okay. So government has their phase-wise investment. I mean, the plan is to have a 6 to 7 million unit of new vehicle sale for full range of electric vehicles, to save around 2.5 to 2.5 million tons of saving of this fuel can be achieved, because India, I mean, import around 90-95% of their crude oil demand. So these are the few electric cars which are launched in India. Eddy Current Control, Mahindra, Tata Tigor Electric, and few hybrid cars, Toyota Prius, Toyota Camry, BMW i8, Honda Accord. So these are the few cars which are launched in India. And basically government has so many flagship schemes which are directly or indirectly contributing to the national e-mobility mission or electric vehicle mission, like Digital India, Make in India, Made in India, Smart City mission, e-mobility mission, FAME 1, FAME 2, all are contributing to the electric mobility mission. And I am just skipping some of the policy slides basically, not want to go more theoretical. And the plan is basically what exactly India wants, that making India passenger mobility shared, electric and connected. It can cut the total energy demand by 64% and carbon emission by 37%. So this is the target basically the government has set up, that if we come to the electric, then the saving in the energy and saving in the carbon emission. This is the target. So all these Make in India, Digital India, FAME, Green Mobility, Smart City, those all are contributing to the electric mobility mission. So these are the basically Indian scenario, how many electric vehicles they have state-wise. Okay. This include your electric motor, electric bike, electric scooter, even electric car also. These are the basically a few motors which we are using for electric vehicles. Now, one more important thing is, since all of you are listening, so permanent magnet induction motor and switched reluctance motor. You may be surprised, whatever motor we have used in our cycle, that is basically hub motor or permanent magnet motor basically. So everybody who is making those cycles, whether it is a Hero, Atlas or whoever, they are importing it from China. One or two Indian companies, they have this motor, but the performance is very poor. So nobody is using that. Okay. So can we, as a technocrat, people who are here with BTech, MTech or PhD degree, I mean, can we think of just to develop this motor as a whole, as an Indian, or under the concept of Atmanirbhar? Okay. Even when Ashok Leyland or the Hero Electric, all these people are, I mean, importing from China. Okay. So can we think of developing here itself. Even frankly speaking, we also purchase from China. But as a technocrats, this is our responsibility to make it indigenous. Okay, and we have just started it with the help of our few friends in IIT Delhi and all. We are just working on that so that we can develop our own motor in this segment, in the lower segment of e-cycle and e-bike. We are trying for that, and I mean other people can also try to develop this motor for our own purpose. Okay, why to purchase from China? I told you purchasing is not a crime, but why to depend on somebody else? Okay, so what is the? I'll just briefly touching this part. Basically, what are the requirement of a motor? I mean, what is the expectation of an electric vehicle from a motor? High torque density, high power density, wide speed range, covering low speed, creeping, and high speed cruising, high efficiency over wide torque and speed range, wide constant power operating capability, high torque capability, high intermittent overload capability, high reliability and robustness for regular environment, low robust acoustic noise, reasonable cost. In China, segment cost is low, no issue, 5,000 or something, but means this is not indigenous. It means if we are purchasing from them, we are supporting their economy, not Indian economy. So these are the few motors basically which we can use in electric vehicles. I'll share all those slides. This is just informative only. Now batteries. I told you in the beginning that batteries are the biggest culprit in electric vehicles. So for batteries basically, we use a lead acid battery, nickel cadmium, nickel metal halide, and a lithium ion. Basically, lithium ion batteries are considered good, having a high specific energy related to other battery types. In the future, technology innovation with lithium ion and other battery technologies. And since this specific energy is high, so the driving range is also high in lithium ion batteries. Okay. Now, in this slide, I'm explaining the current available technology. Okay, what exactly going on in a research side regarding battery, I have not included here. So currently, if you see lead acid, nickel cadmium, nickel metal halide, so this is the available range. 50 kilometer you can go, then 80 kilometer, 100 kilometer, and now lithium ion. So in a single charge, you can move around 160 kilometer. Okay. Now under development, future lithium ion, zinc air, lithium sulfur, which can give you 400 kilometer, and lithium air that can give you 550 kilometers. So this is in the R&D phase, under development, or you can say the R&D phase. Okay. But right now, the high specific energy density is in lithium only. So lithium ion batteries are perfect. Even lithium ion batteries are costly also. Okay. So right now this is the scenario. Means if you charge once, you can go more and more, 200 kilometers or something. But right now people are working, a lot of people are working in US universities in order to increase the driving range of the battery. Okay. So surely in the next few years something good will come out in terms of the battery, in terms of the driving range of the electric motor. Okay, but right now this is the scenario. Now you can see one more thing, one thing is common in all the batteries, or most of the batteries, the lithium. Okay, lithium is playing a role in all the batteries, but from where it will come? In the challenges slide, in one of our slide, when I talk about the challenges, so one challenge was raw material for batteries. So here you can say the raw material for batteries is lithium. So do we have enough lithium in India? This is your answer. Lithium producing countries: Australia, topping the chart, Chile, China, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Portugal, Brazil. We are nowhere in top 7. We may have few reserve, but we have to search out, we have to explore. But right now the scenario is this, that India doesn't have a lithium reserve. Once we doesn't have a lithium reserve, we are, dependent again we are dependent on somebody else. So this is the hindrance, or maybe we can adopt some trade policy that something which is available in India we can export, and in lieu of that we can import the lithium. That we need to do. So right now the scenario is we are lacking in lithium reserve. These are the few battery manufacturer industries. Now I'll come to the technical part basically. So till now I have discussed why electric vehicle required, some history, then why electric vehicle required, what are the importance, advantage of electric vehicle, then what are the challenges, whether this is a battery side or policy side, technical challenges or infrastructure wise challenges and all. Now, what exactly the technology is related to electric vehicles? So this is basically one thing. I think people here from power system background, power electronics background would be there. So I have something for all. Okay. First thing is we have a off-board or on-board. Off-board or on-board. The name suggests everything on the board. Everything on board means your charger and all this. I mean, inside the vehicle, you have to just plug. You have to take a plug and just put it. Off-board, your charger is outside. Your whole arrangement is outside, and then you are coming out with a plug and charging it. It's just like in my cycle, there's an onboard charger. So I just need a plug and connect it to the, with the BMS battery management system and plug in it. So it will charge. So everything on the vehicle itself, on board, everything on the board, off board, outside. Okay. So you can see just a line diagram for this vehicle. We have available AC. So first this AC is converted into DC with a PFC circuit. PFC is nothing but power factor correction circuit. Then DC-DC converter. First of all, AC converted to DC. Since we need a DC to charge the battery, so we are using a DC-DC converter. With the help of this DC-DC converter, we are charging this battery. Now energy is stored in the battery. So in order to run the motor, if this is an induction motor or AC motor, then we need a inverter, DC-AC. This inverter is converting the battery DC voltage into AC, battery DC into AC, and then running this motor. And this is basically unidirectional for electronic load, light, heat, auxiliary supply. Okay. So here are 5 important areas where people can think of, 4 important areas where people can think of doing research. First part is AC to DC converter. You can think of different circuit topologies to convert this AC into DC. When you are converting this AC into DC, just have an example of a bridge. Okay, just a H bridge. So when you are converting this AC into DC, the size of the DC link is quite high. Since second harmonic is reflecting. Okay, so DC link is the DC link is quite high, and the capacitor, DC link capacitor is quite having a very large value. So you can think how to decrease this. So people use different change circuit topology in order to reduce the value of DC link. So what I mean to say, AC DC converter, people can think of different topologies, power, especially for power electronics people. They can design different topologies and can think of how to convert this AC into DC effectively. This is one area. Another is a DC to DC conversion. Here the simplest is DC to DC, bidirectional DC-DC buck boost converter. Charging and discharging mode. Okay. Or you can think of the unidirectional also, means only charging. So you need to develop a different DC-DC converter in order to charge the battery. Now, what you can think of DC-DC converter? Maybe the size, weight, cost, efficiency, all those are the parameters you can keep in mind while developing a DC-DC converter topology. So 2 areas, then come to the battery. Battery is basically more or more to the power system as well as power electronics people. You need to develop a charging algorithm. How to charge this battery? So maybe one can think of, there is the two type of charging: coordinated or uncoordinated. Coordinated charging is termed as smart charging. So people can think of a smart charging algorithm in order to charge this battery. And battery energy management system, BMS, also people can work. So this is basically for power system people. They can work on charging algorithm. They can work on battery management, battery energy management system. Then the fourth one is electric motors. People can design different electric motors for a specific vehicle application in order to increase the overall efficiency of the system. So these are the 4-5 research areas for the people who are listening or who are thinking of doing their PhD or maybe their MTech thesis and all. Okay. So people can think of it. Now next, these are the levels basically. Level 1 charger, level 2 charger, DC charging is also there. Old system means now you have seen the parking in a modernized way. This is also a charging station, okay, in 1907. Already I have discussed these things when I was talking about the slide. So there are some protocols: CHAdeMO charger, J1772. So CHAdeMO charger is basically for level 2 DC off-board. Level 2 AC on-boards, J172. The CHAdeMO charger is basically Japanese charging protocols. Off-board, on-board, already I have explained. Now, role of electric vehicles in a smart grid. Basically, I'll give one example. Let's say there is a parking. Let's say our campus, the strength is around 7,000 or 6,000 people are there. Let's say out of 7,000 or 10%, let's say we have 1,000 electric vehicles right now in the campus. Okay, 9 to 5 people comes and they put or they keep their vehicles in the parking station. I told you that average size of a vehicle battery in a medium segment vehicle, the average size of the battery is around 10 kilowatt hour. Okay, so generally a small household in a village, they have a 1 kilowatt connection or 0.5 or maybe 0.75 kilowatt connection. In a house in a city, 2 to 3 kilowatt normal, I'm saying. Okay, so ultimately one vehicle battery, when it is fully charged, is capable of giving energy to the 2 to 3 houses. Okay, one battery is enough to supply power to the 2 to 3 houses. So 10 kilowatt hour one battery or one vehicle capacity. Now let's say I have 1,000 vehicle of such type. So 1,000 into 10, 10,000 kilowatt hour. Okay, this much of energy is stored in the battery, and now all the vehicles are in a parking lot. They are just idle. They are in an idle mode. Okay, they just kept in the parking lot idle mode. So imagine that I have a reserve of energy, a kind of spinning reserve. Okay, I have a reserve of energy of 10,000 kilowatt hour. kilowatt hour spinning reserve is there, and this is kept idle since morning to evening. Okay, and if there is a frequency drop in some area, or you can say a critical load demand is there in some area, so is it possible if, out of this 10,000 kilowatt hour, if 60% or 70% I can transfer to that area, I can send to that area. Okay, because you cannot store AC, you can store energy in electric vehicle in the form of battery. Okay, so this is a dynamic load, or you can say the dynamic system, where you are moving around and you have a storage itself. Okay, so V2G and G2B, vehicle to grid or grid to vehicle. Grid to vehicle means you need, you are charging your vehicle to grid. Vehicle to grid is from vehicle you are sending to the grid, bi-directional. Okay, so one is grid to vehicle, another is vehicle to grid. So your electric vehicle has this capability that you can charge it, run it. Okay, when this is in idle mode, you can ask your vehicle to supply to the area where there is a critical load demand, maybe hospitals, maybe one important operation needs to be performed and surgery need to perform and there is no light, so there is emergency. So can you ask your vehicle or the parking lot that send power to this area where it is required, just like that. So this is a basically role of electric vehicle in the smart grid. Already I have talked about V2G, Z2V, and one more thing is vehicle to vehicle. You might have seen when this Rafale came. So in one of the action, in air to air itself, one Rafale was used to refuel the another Rafale. Okay, means in a mid air itself, they are refueling each other. One Rafale jet was helping the another Rafale jet in order to get refuel. Okay, is it possible that you have a electric vehicle, your colleague is also having electric vehicle? When they are in a parking lot, can they interchange their electricity? This is also one of the great area to work. So that also people can think of. Even in one of the university in Abu Dhabi, they are working. I know the professor, he's my friend. They got a funding project over it and they are, something they are working over it. So this is the role of electric vehicle in the smart grid. Vehicle to grid, grid to vehicle, vehicle to home. Vehicle to home is common. Means just like your UPS inverter. Okay, you are supporting your home with the help of your battery, your vehicle battery. So all these things, I have emergency power. That emergency power you can supply from your vehicle to your needy area. I gave one example of hospital. And this vehicle to grid, grid to vehicle already I have explained. Grid to vehicle, you are charging, and back from vehicle to grid, you are discharging back to the grid. Okay. Bidirectional basically. So now come to the hardware part. This is something we have developed at IIT Delhi. Then after that, I'll come to what we have done at IIT Jaipur. So this is nothing but a system where, first of all, I'll explain through this only first. Then I'll come to the hardware. This is a solar grid interface. We are injecting solar energy into the grid. First of all, we are doing this. Control is done by control algorithm. So you can imagine that this is a multi-story building, and they are in the parking lot of the building. There are the electric vehicles. Okay. So at rooftop, solar is there, and from those rooftop solar, first of all, what we are doing, we are supplying the load of the building, charging the electric vehicle same time, and rest of the energy sending or injecting back into the grid. Okay, means let's say here the solar is 50 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt or 20 kilowatt is supplied to the load of the building. They have a different type of load, washing machine, fridge, AC, whatever. Okay, 10 kilowatt supplied to the electric vehicles which are in the basement. Then rest of the 20 kilowatt is supplied to the grid. Now in the night time when solar is not there, maybe your grid can supply your load, or maybe the electric vehicles which are kept idle mode in the parking lot, they can supply it to the load, or excess power can be supplied to the grid, kind of thing. Okay, so here this black box, you can see here this is a battery. This is a lead acid battery only. Solar array simulator, DSpace 1103 control monitor, and this computer is for solar simulator. Now this is the circuit. This is a 4-leg voltage source converter. This one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-leg VSC. So, and this is a DC-DC converter in between. The top one is basically signal conditional circuit, having a current sensor, voltage sensor, and all. So this is these are the interfacing inductor. So ultimately, what we did first, this is basically hardware for a 6 kilowatt only. I gave example of 50 kilowatt, that is another thing. But 6 kilowatt laboratory prototype we have tested for the same. First of all, injected into the grid, charge the battery same time, and load also. Later on, once solar is not there, discharge those battery to supply building load, or if excess is available, supply to the grid also. So these are the results. Battery voltage. This is basically charging. Battery charging, positive current, then discharging mode, negative current. When battery is discharging, battery voltage is down and then increase. So charging and discharging, both way, bidirectional power flow. You can say when this is charging, your grid voltage and grid current are in the same phase. When discharging, the grid current, because the direction of the current is now reverse, so this is 180 degree out of phase here. This one. Okay. So charging and discharging. This is the battery profile while charging and discharging. So this is a one experimental thing that you can inject solar into the grid, and meantime charge the electric vehicle, supply the load, and when solar is not there, supply the load through electric vehicles or supply to the grid, like that. Now here when I joined 4 years back at MNIT Jaipur, we developed one lab, that is Smart Energy and Sustainable Research Lab. So in this lab we have a few funding projects. One project is basically for development of unidirectional and bidirectional EV chargers for electric transportation. Then in this basically we have developed few chargers. I'll discuss those chargers, what we have developed in that. Then we have few patent also in this project. Another project is basically the cooperative isolated renewable energy system for rural areas, basically enhancing reliability of power in rural areas. So in this project, we developed some prototype in lab, and then now we are deploying this system into the village. The village is around 16 kilometers from MNIT Jaipur, Borthal in Bassi Tehsil. So here we are developing a 50 kilowatt microgrid. We have selected few houses to supply it. It's not just a microgrid. The novelty is basically we are not using any grid. This is isolated microgrid, and whatever required as a reference generation we are providing through the battery. Okay. So the installation work is just started. We received panels, and also the targeted by the end of the November we will try that everything should be installed, deployed, and in a functional mode. So people can visit it also once it is over. This is a unique type of thing right now. So Mission Innovation, we got this funding under Mission Innovation, and Mission Innovation in all over India, 9 projects were funded under Mission Innovation. So one we got at MNIT Jaipur. Another project we have a cooperative microgrid integrated smart electric transportation. That is basically a Spark funding. University of New South Wales, Australia, and University of Concordia are our partner, and we are working on those projects. So since the talk is on electric vehicles, so I'll talk about only one project here. What we have done in that, we will talk about it. We are also working in microgrid, and this is a real-time microgrid to supply into the village. Since the new government is thinking that we should come out of the lab, whatever research we are doing, that should come out of the lab, and we should deploy it. So just synchronizing with that thinking, whatever we have developed, the topologies and whatever we have developed, now we are installing in the field. One of the industries supporting us in this, since at a lab level we can't do all the packaging and everything just to deploy in the field. Okay. So one industry is supporting us in this project. Now I'll come to our electric vehicle project. This project is already finished in 2020 itself, March 2020. So under this project, basically what we did, we developed charger topologies, electric vehicle charger. So in those electric vehicle chargers, we developed unidirectional, means just to charge the battery, bidirectional charge and discharge the battery. Bidirectional power flow means first one will act as a grid to vehicle, unidirectional. Second one is both grid to vehicle as well as vehicle to grid. Now wireless power transfer also we did. The three type of charger topologies we developed in this project: unidirectional, bidirectional, and wireless power transfer. So basically what exactly we are doing in charger? One industry approaches us with their charger. The weight of the charger was 3 kg. That is e-rickshaw charger. Efficiency 70%. They come to us, they told that we want to reduce the weight to 1 kg and the efficiency should be 90% like that. And the weight should also reduce 3 to 1 kg. So what we did, we see this is not only the problem of this charger, all over the world. Okay, charger, I mean the thing to do in charger are, can you reduce the weight of the charger? Can you increase the efficiency of the charger? Size of the charger and cost. Means increase efficiency, reduce weight, size and cost. These are the things to do in the charger. These are the research areas in the charger. Okay. Now how to achieve this? Reduce in the weight, size, cost and increase in efficiency. How to achieve this? So we worked on 4 areas basically. One is modifying the PWM. Whatever PWM you used earlier, we modified that. Okay. One thing. Second thing is selection of the switch. Means you know that 4 or 5 times MOSFETs are available. So many MOSFETs are available. IRP 460, IRP, so many are available. Now which one you will select for your system in order to get the good efficiency? This is one thing. Okay. So modified PWM, selection of the switch. Third thing is soft switching. Again, I repeat, soft switching is not a new thing. Already people invented in 1960 or something. But to achieve soft switching in this charger during full load range was difficult. Means people can easily achieve this soft switching at a heavy load, but at a light load, it get lost. So overall efficiency got deteriorated. Okay. So we achieved that at a wide range of load. So one thing is soft switching, selection of the switch, PWM, and then third thing is changes in the topological change. Okay. Topological change. So these 4 things we performed on a charger and we achieved the desired result. So these are the levels and we achieved the last one, 1.08 kilowatt, 120 volt AC. So this we have achieved and we performed all the tests in the laboratories. And now we are looking for another funding so that we can perform the other levels. Okay. So the last one charger we have developed in our lab according to the specifications. So now basically what is our expectation from a DC-DC converter? High power density, high efficiency, high reliability, and then economics. So you know, I mean this is a basic slide. When low power level and high frequency we use MOSFET. Then if we have a high power rating and low frequency we go for a IGBT, and accordingly if power level increases more, G2 and all. Okay. Now in these characteristics, you know, in power electronics we always use our switch, or we always operate switch either in cutoff region or in this linear region, this one. Okay, but not in saturation, region. Maybe in quasi saturation we can use. Okay, so cutoff region or linear region, we always operate our switch here. If we operate the switch in this saturation region, you will have a definitely a value of current and voltage. So P equals to V into I. So you have a power loss. But if you operate in cutoff region or in this linear region, let's say you are operating in cutoff region. Okay, when you are operating in a cutoff region, your current is 0. Ideally, okay, I'm saying ideally 0. So P equals to V into I. I is 0, so means P equal to 0. I mean, when you are operating in a cutoff region, your current is 0, so this will be termed as a zero current switching. ZCS, zero current switching. So zero current means P equals to V into I 0. So your ideally power losses are 0. That is called soft switching. So you have to operate this switch here or either here. Either voltage 0, zero voltage switching, or current 0, zero current switching. So when you operate in this region, you know that no losses. Okay. But you operate somewhere here in this region, these are the losses. Okay. So people are using soft switching in the charger, but when they have a light load, their soft switching got lost due to so many reasons. I'll explain earlier. But in our topologies, what we have developed the mechanism that we can get this soft switching all load, all range of load, or you can say the wide load range. Okay, so we are able to get a good performance. Now, in this topology, basically, what we did a topological change. Earlier, what happened when this was not there, when this shaded part was not there? So at a light load, the value of current was less, and this coil get de-energized, so soft switching got lost. But with the help of this, we are able to achieve the soft switching. Now, soft switching is okay. Now, selection of the switch. I told you, lot of MOSFET are available. This is IRFP460, IXFN64, N60P, IPP65R0. So, you can see, when we worked on 1 kilowatt, the efficiency is 94%, 95 and 96%. Means MOSFET we are using, okay, but different MOSFET we are using. They are giving different efficiency because they depend upon the R-on value of those MOSFET. So once you go to the application note or data sheet, you will find that value, okay. So although we are using MOSFET, but by using different type of MOSFET, you are getting the different efficiency. Now come to the cost. The IRP460 is of 300 rupees. Second one is 1800. Third one is 820. Now you have to go for a trade-off. Cost is not only the issue, but the efficiency is also. So the MOSFET, which is giving 96% and 800 rupees, we select that. Okay. So one important aspect in power electronics is how to select a switch. Which switch you should select. And this paper we published in IT Power Electronics. So ultimately, the switch selection play a very important role. If I select this IRP460 and my efficiency is around 2% less, okay, and if I use this, my efficiency increase by 2%. So when I'm working at a high power, or maybe see, since I cannot use MOSFET for a high power ideally, so let's say about maybe 1 kilowatt or 2 kilowatt, this 2% matters. Okay, so selection of the switch is quite important. These are the topologies we developed, and the good thing is everything we developed in lab, starting from the scratch, developing the circuit, fabricating the PCB itself, we did in the lab. And although we purchased those equipment, those capacitor, everything from the market, and this inductor and all, everything we made in the lab only. So by doing some topological change, by selecting the switch, by using the modified PWM, we achieved, and we are able to reduce the size, cost, weight of the charger. Now listen, if I reduce the losses by using soft switching, okay, or if I reduce the losses by using this switch, reduce the loss means reduce the value of the heat sink. Ultimately, I'm using the heat sink in order to dissipate the losses. So once my losses are high or large losses are there, high losses are there, in that case, I need to design a heat sink. Or obviously, when losses are high, my heat sink will also be bulky. Okay. So once I'm reducing the losses, either by soft switching, either by selecting switching, either by topological change, either by PWM, modified PWM, ultimately I'm reducing the losses. Reduce loss means reduce value of the heat sink. Heat sink reduce means overall size of the charger, overall weight of the charger get reduced. Okay. So this is something we did, and to do this basically lot of analysis, we proved it mathematically as well as from the hardware result. So these are the hardware result. Means we you can easily say we achieved the ZVS, zero voltage switching here, and compare the losses. Once we use PWM, modified PWM. So this is the loss comparison, basically power loss comparison. Then this is the comparison of the earlier topology. What earlier people did. So nobody was able to achieve the soft switching at light load. And if they are able to achieve, they are achieved in only 2 switches. But here we achieved in all the 4 switches. And again we published in IT Power Touch. So this is again the results which we have achieved. You can see that one is PSM, phase shift modulation, another is modified PWM. So with the modified PWM, the results are quite convincing. With phase shift modulation, efficiency was around 89%, and with the modified PWM, the efficiency was 95%. So this is the difference by using the modified PWM. In modified PWM, basically we change the duty cycle accordingly, and this is again you can see the result, 95%. 97%. So this is something given to us by industry, and we modified it. I mean, I told you earlier that the industry came to us with a charger of 3 kg. They want to reduce the weight, size, cost, efficiency, increase like that. So this is something developed. Unidirectional or bidirectional. For bidirectional, basically, this is one of the charger developed by my student, MTech student, and published in again IT Power Plus. So it can work in charging mode, regenerative also, propulsion mode, and this is basically all 4 modes are here. The top, this is a circuit diagram for the charger. Now wireless. This is a setup of one PhD student. Develop one charger for wireless power transfer. There is a ground clearance between road and your vehicle. So that ground clearance here in the receiving coil and transmitter coil, the ground clearance around 27 centimeter or 270 mm, you can say. So this guy has already submitted his PhD 1 month before. So means he achieved efficiency around 96% with this, and we are efficiently we are able to transfer, or we are able to charge this battery. This is a battery here, you can see, and this is a transmitter coil, this is a receiver coil. So wirelessly we are charging this battery, the wireless power transfer. This is a topology for wireless power transfer. Now so at the end, my student have incubated one company as of Government of India mandate is there that now NIT means NIT faculty can also have a incubated company. So my student has incubated this company at MIIC, Malviya Innovation and Incubation Center at MNIT. So this is basically a company dealing with e-mobility only. Just started in this March itself. So basically, this company has developed one cycle, different model, 4 models they have developed. So in a single charge, it go around 35 kilometer. In a pedal assisted mode, it go around 70 kilometer. So once you charge it, the speed is around 25 kilometer per hour. We use a motor in this. The battery is around 10 ampere hour battery. So this is one which we have developed, and these are the few 4-5 segment of the cycles which is developed by the startup. So this is a team for startup. This is a we did earlier. Even I'm using this cycle right now in the campus itself. So these are the few recent publications. In this year itself, we got 6 IEEE transactions accepted, and many more to come. So this all is from my side. Thank you very much. I'm open to question answer session. If you have any questions, please ask. I tried to give us brief idea actually, because a lot of things are there, and if we start, it will take the whole day. So I just want to ignite that these are the areas, these are the work we are doing, and these are the informations. So now I'm open to your questions.
Sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, participants, you can ask your question.
Yeah, sir. Good morning. This is Ravi Kumar. Sir, I'm working in area bidirectional converter. Sir, you have developed the charger now, sir. Bidirectional charger. Can you just show and explain more about that? What you have done with that?
Okay. Basically, my student work on this. One of PhD student work on this. So here, first of all, we are charging. We have a developed bidirectional. Okay. So we have one circuit for charging the EV, or you can say the battery, not EV, because the experiment which we are doing, that is we are doing on a electric vehicle only. Sorry, battery only. Okay. So in a first code, we are converting this into DC, and then we are charging. Okay. Charging the battery. Now with another converter, okay, we are discharging it. Means this is discharged with the help of another converter. So we are DC to DC and then again DC to DC. Means in a bidirectional, basically what happened, AC, DC, okay, then battery.
Yes, sir.
But what we are doing right now, from battery, again we are converting to AC.
Okay, sir.
2-stage converter basically. One stage, another stage. For a simplifying operation, I'll let you know, because whatever we have done, this is under publication stage. So for a simplified, I'll tell you, you have a AC to DC. First of all, you have converted this. Now you have a DC-DC converter. So DC-DC converter is nothing but your bidirectional buck boost converter. When you are operating in a buck mode, it will charge your battery. Okay.
Yes, sir.
When you are operating in a boost mode, it will discharge your battery. And discharge means, see, AC, DC, one thing. DC, from DC to battery, you have a buck. Okay. Now yes, again, bidirectional mode, battery, boost converter, and then DC.
Yes,
battery DC will be battery DC, battery in between you have a boost converter, then you have a. Now this DC with the help of this bidirectional AC DC is converted to AC. So stages are there: AC DC, DC DC, battery. Then again, that was buck mode. In a boost mode, it will discharge the battery like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, is there any particular literature regarding this particular bidirectional charger?
For a basic idea, yeah, for a basic idea, you can refer one of my paper, which is published in 2011. It is available in IEEE. Okay.
Okay, sir.
If you have any issue, then let me know. You can mail me. Okay. So I'll send that. So
okay,
this is a basic idea how the bidirectional works basically. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir. Sir, your mail ID or any contact details?
Yeah, that is given. You can take it from the organizers also. In fact, in my first slide, let me keep that. In my first slide is there. So I think it is visible. So in my first slide, the mail ID is there. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm not. Yes, sir.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Sir, we have some more questions in the chat section. Okay. I'll read it out, sir. Mr. Deepan Kumar have asked if the battery damaged after several use, How we can overcome from the damaged battery? Damaged battery does pollute the environment. How to overcome that?
So that's why I discussed, when I was discussing barriers, that's why I discussed that recycling of the battery is must. So once battery is, drained out or not of use, then we must have the mechanism in order to recycle those batteries. Whenever our battery, which are working in UPS or whatever, we exchange it, there is a certain price for that battery. Okay. Then ultimately recycling should be there. So the ultimate aim is we must have a recycling in order to properly use it. It should not be a waste. We must have a battery based management.
Thank you, sir. And one more question from Dr. Ramesh. BLDC motors also used in EVs.
Yes,
He is
yes.
asking a question.
Yes,
Whether
those are used. BLDC use. PMLDC or BLDC, they are the same thing. One is brushless, one is permanent brushless. Okay. Permanent magnet brushless, PMBLDC. So yes, both can be used.
And one more question from Mr. William. In Tata Nexon EV, the kilometers covered is 312 km per charge. What type of battery is used in it?
Tata Nexon EV, the kilometers covered 312 kilometer range. What type of battery used in this? Actually, right now, in one slide I discussed that the R&D phases, okay, and the future R&D, all those I have discussed. Okay, so maybe they are using some extended version of this lithium ion. That's why they have this much of range. Not exactly the name, but yes, that is basically based on lithium ion only. I told you that a lot of people are working in the US universities regarding this battery. A lot of companies are working. Even I have been in US 6 years before. Then a lot of people are working in that area. So definitely one extended version of this lithium ion only they are working, because all the batteries, they are having a lithium somewhere. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. And one more question on based on which criteria motor is selected and the BMS is designed.
Basically, for selection of motor criteria, in one of my slides, I'll share those PPTs. I already told that these are the qualities of a motor, of a drive. We should look for electric vehicle: high starting torque, noise, and also many things I have discussed in that. Okay, there's one particular slide in which all the criteria were meant: fluctuations, okay, heat capacity, all those things, everything was there. So I'll share those slides. So those are the criteria while selecting the motors for electric vehicle we should keep in our mind.
Thank you, sir. Participants, any more queries?
Sir, this is Ravikumar. One more question, sir. Sir, regarding the usage of battery and supercapacitor combination, sir, for a HES-based system in a microgrid, for a 48-volt load, what could be the proper combination? If we take battery and supercapacitor.
What is the purpose of using supercapacitor? Basically, you are trying to mitigate the fluctuations, I think.
Yes, sir. Exactly, sir. So
for the momentary fluctuations, you are using supercapacitors. Okay, and battery you are using for what? For storage purpose.
Yes, it is for supplying the base power. Only for fluctuating part, we want the supercapacitor to be there. Correct. So that during regeneration it can accommodate, or it can supply the extra demand in the load apart from battery. So if we are using for a 48-volt load, if we take battery and supercapacitor, because supercapacitor cost is more, so what do you think would be the optimal combination if we take battery and supercapacitor, so that we can have our power management in a proper optimal way, sir?
Yeah, I understand. Basically, there are different purpose for your battery as well as for your supercapacitor. Okay.
Yes.
By any load change or sudden, spike or whatever, you are using those supercapacitors. Okay.
Yes.
That is basically a different purpose. You are not storing, not using for storage purpose.
Yes, sir.
And battery you are using for a storage purpose, basically.
Yes, sir.
Now, your what is the rating of this microgrid?
Sir, 48 volts. We want output.
48 volt.
Yes, sir.
No, so That is 48 volt battery you are saying.
So at the output side, we want 48 volts. Load
48
requirement.
volt DC.
Yes, sir.
The DC grid.
Yes, sir.
So and at 48 volt also you want to charge this battery.
So if we want to supply 48 volts, so what should be the sizing of the battery and supercapacitor so that we have optimal? The cost also is a factor.
So actually one thing is you need a 48 volt. Okay, so this 48 volt you need to charge. I mean at battery you are charging this battery at a certain voltage. Okay, if I'm not wrong. So what is this? Generally we use a converter. Okay.
Yes, some 24 volts like this.
24 volt battery you are charging.
Yes, sir.
So if you 48 volt as output.
Yes, sir.
So use a boost converter in between.
Yes, sir. So if that is used, and if we take supercapacitor, how much should be the size of that? How do we like take it, sir?
Size of battery? Size of battery you are talking about?
Size of the supercapacitor, sir.
Okay.
See, if it is like we are using like a multi-input converter, sir, a DC-DC converter, where we are going to supply the load from battery and the supercapacitor together. So what should be the combination if you want to get the output of converter as 48 volts?
So overall rating of the system is what? What is the overall rating of the system?
Overall is 48 volts, sir.
No, power rating I'm talking about.
Power 500 watts, sir.
Only 500 watt. What is the capacity of the battery?
Battery is 22.2 volts, like this, nearly 24.
Okay, you are charging it 24. So what is the ampere hour of this battery?
Ampere hour is,
ampere hour. What is the ampere hour of this battery?
Battery ampere hour is around 20 ampere hours, sir.
20 ampere hour.
Yes, sir.
So right now you are using supercapacitor. What is the rating of that supercapacitor right now which you are using?
So that is what I have a doubt, sir. Means what should be the rating? We can optimize the efficiency and cost, sir. Because cost.
So that basically you have to calculate even the sizing of the battery we can calculate very efficiently by so accordingly the supercapacitor is. So for a sizing of the battery, roughly for a steady state, how we calculate, generally we keep that at how long, means let's say you are designing this battery for how many hours, means you want a supply of this 20 ampere for a 1 hour or 8 hour, accordingly we have to design. Means let's say you want this for a 8 hour. Okay, then
yes,
what is the kilowatt hour, then your the mini just like you are using for 24 volt. Okay, so
yes,
you are charging it fully, the battery voltage will be around 27 volt or 27.2 something like. Okay, when this is a fully discharged, that battery voltage will be around 21 volt or something. So this is a maximum voltage or minimum voltage, and accordingly you have to design it.
Okay, sir.
Okay, means what is the capacity of your battery, then how many hours you are using it, then what is the VOC maximum, what is the VOC minimum. Okay,
yes, sir.
To design this, so it will give you the size basically. Okay, you try it, and if you have any issue you can mail me also. Although I worked on sizing of the battery, not on the supercapacitor, but definitely I'll find out something for you. But the design will be in this manner only, that what is the time, what is the rating of battery, what is the VOC minimum, what is the VOC max, and how much time you are using it. So accordingly you can design in a steady state you can design the size. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
Try, and if you have anything you can mail me also. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You are doing PhD or what?
Yes, sir. I'm doing PhD.
Okay. So you try, and you can revert me back. Okay.
Okay, sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing many technical details regarding the electric vehicle charging and then batteries, everything. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you can disconnect now, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Participants, a link has been posted in the chat section. You can go to that link and then you can fill the attendance. And next session will be start by 12. So make available by 11:55 p.m. Sorry, 11:55 a.m. Thank you all.